What is going on, everyone? I hope everyone's doing super well. 2024 bow season is actually coming up pretty quick, and I know I have some new beginner bow hunters that are, following my channel, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of advice. That way you can kind of start practicing for summer, getting into that habit of, getting comfortable with the release. So today's video, we're going to be talking about the two types of releases that I recommend for bow hunting, and even target shooting for that fact of the matter. So today's video, over releases, let's get into it. When you're shooting a bow, there's really two styles of releases that you're going to find. There's three types, but two styles. You're going to have a handheld like this, and a handheld release actually can be two types of releases. Or actually really three, kind of. You're going to have what's known as a thumb button, where you use your thumb peg to actually activate your shot and actually fire the bow. And then you have what's known as a back tension, or commonly also known as a hinge, and that's all of rotational deflection. That's how you usually do that, but I'll get onto that here in a second. But I want to go with the most common one that you beginners out there are probably going to start with, and that I even myself started with when I started bow hunting. The most common release that you're going to start with is a wrist strap. I like wrist straps a lot for beginners because, first and foremost, you're just getting into it and you don't know what you're going to like and you don't know what you're going to dislike. So wrist straps typically are more budget friendly. You're going to get, a better bang for your buck for a wrist strap than you are going to get like a thumb button or a handheld. I like that for the fact that, one, it's easy to let down. So if you're a bow hunter and you're not comfortable with your bow setup yet, and you're not comfortable with your shot process, you can let down that release and you can be very effective in doing that without actually damaging your bow, being jerky, and getting a lack of confidence in your shot setup. So a wrist strap obviously goes around your wrist, and what it does is it buckles. I'll show you guys how to put it on in 1 second, but one thing I do want to show you is just how easy it is to draw back and let down. So if you guys can see this is my D loop right here. I can open these up by pulling the trigger. If you guys can see these jaws, how they open like that. Yep. What you're gonna do is you're gonna put that on there and close it. It automatically closes. If you look, I'm putting tension on it, and then I can draw back. And I'm at full draw now, and now I'd just be able to shoot. I'm not going to shoot because I have a broadhead on this arrow and I'm not really ready to shoot it, but that's how a wrist strap works. And if I want to let down, I can just slowly release down, and boom, that's how easy it is with a wrist strap. They're pretty easy, pretty good going as far as getting started. I like them because you can be consistent with them for the most part. I do like a handheld a little bit better, and I've been shooting a handheld myself for about 3 years, and I'm getting ready to tell you guys why, but I'm going to go over all the pros to a wrist strap real quick, and then all the cons, and then we're going to hop into the handheld. So a wrist strap has a lot of pros. First and foremost, they are more budget friendly if you're just getting into shooting a bow. I like that a lot because, sometimes you don't want to spend, $1,000 for a bow setup. You might spend $400, $500 on a bow, $50 on, a dozen arrows, $20 on broadheads, and then you just buy a $20, $30 wrist strap. And that'll get you along just fine. I was the same way when I started. I did the exact same type of setup, and I killed deer with it for for a long time, and then eventually I wanted to excel to that next level. And typically you're going to do that when you go into a handheld, whether it be a thumb button, a hinge, or a back tension. That's typically when you're going to go to that next level. Another thing I like about these a lot is that they're really easy to use. All you have to do is pull the trigger to get on your D-loop, draw back, and pull the trigger to shoot. You don't want to pull the trigger, you actually want to squeeze it. I should preface that before I get into any part of the video, is because if you pull that trigger, you're going to get inconsistencies. What you do want to do is just put your finger around this trigger like this, wrap it around, and then just slowly apply pressure until it goes off. You want it to be a surprise shot every single time. That way you can get the most consistent shot every single time. I like that a lot. Another thing that's really good about these is that these are super adjustable. Now that can also be a con too, and I'll get onto that here in a second. But if you're someone that is wearing clothes, or you're not wearing clothes when you're hunting, well, you're going to be wearing clothes, but you know what I mean. If you're going to be layering up, you can get this up underneath, and you can make this, there's a lot of room in there. If I were to be wearing a coat and a couple shirts, you have a lot of adjustability that way. Another thing that I don't like about that, and we're going to get into the cons real quick, is that these typically can you're never going to put them in the same exact spot. That's a consistency problem. You might put them here, then slide them down, put them here, then slide them down, and that can cause problems with consistency. Other than that, I don't like the pressure that they give on your anchor points. That can kind of be a consistency issue too with face pressure. I'll leave a video linked up here to show you guys a little tip that I have for you guys, so you guys can be a little bit better with your accuracy, but that's what a wrist strap will do for you. So the second type of release that you guys are going to see when you guys are out shopping looking for a release is a handheld. This exact release is a True Ball Goat. I will be doing a review on that here pretty quick. But this release right here is an actual hinge and a thumb button. When you buy a release, what I would recommend doing is start out with a thumb button when you buy a handheld. That way you just get used to actually having something held in your hand and not wrapped around your wrist and then go to a hinge. That's kind of counterintuitive because you're kind of spending money twice. This release is actually a 2-in-1, that's why I bought it. I have never used the thumb button feature on it, so to speak, but I've always used the hinge. Now, what I like about a thumb button is, or a handheld, is it's always consistent. It's always just in your hand. It's always in the same spot. That's the most consistent part about it. And the second spot is, I also like it because if you look where your jaw 90s, you can just tuck your knuckle right in there, and that's a super consistent spot. It's going to get rid of a lot of face pressure, which causes accuracy issues because your string is having pressure and infliction onto that string on which the path it's traveling to get back to rest. And then I also like it because it also aligns up with your nose, so you get a perfect angle and good form down there than you're shooting towards your target. These also typically have a little bit better angle. You know, when you're drawing back, you're not drawing up like this, and it's going to correct your arm on the back end for your form. Typically these also actually make your draw length about a ½ inch longer. That's what I found with mine. So if you're shooting a 30-inch draw length with a wrist strap, you're probably shooting a 30.5 with a handheld. And I'll kind of show you guys the difference. So my hand would fit right here, and look how much that is lengthening where I'm actually attaching to my D-loop. Whereas if you look here, when I'm holding this release in my hand, I'm right there against it. That's going to give you a lot more feel of your string too, which can be good or bad depending on what shooter you are. For me, I think that's a little bit better because I like to be, you know, completely intuitive to my bow. And I want to know exactly what's going on and when it's going to happen. That's kind of different than anticipating the shot. Like I said, I'll leave a video up here so you guys can kind of look at some form tips. But those are the two types of release. I'm going to go over the pros real quick. Like I said, it's going to be more consistent for a anchor point on the jaw. It's going to typically give you a ½ inch longer, which is more power, more kinetic energy, more accuracy typically. And I also think that these are, you know, just overall quality build. Typically these are going to do a little bit better for you. Now the cons to these. One, I've seen it a million times working on bows. People lose handhelds all the time because they're not attached to your wrist. That's another pro to a wrist strap that I didn't throw in there that I probably should have. But I like those quite a bit, you know, just because, you know, you can put it in your pocket or in your bino harness. You're not getting it all tangled up in your clothes. You can just grab your bow, grab everything, draw back and shoot. I've done a wrist strap. I did a wrist strap for probably the first 3 or 4 years of my bow hunting career, and I killed plenty of deer, plenty of turkeys, just everything in the woods that I was hunting. It worked, you know, looked great for me. But a handheld I just have had a lot more success with as far as being accurate, as far as long distance. It's a lot more stable in your shot. The cons, like I said, they're easy to lose, and typically these are more expensive. This exact release was actually $300. It has multiple types of material made into it, and it is a 2-in-1, so technically it'd be $150 for each for the thumb button and the hinge. But those are just the two types of releases, and we'll give them a couple shots. I'm going to show you guys kind of what the angle and what my form looks like with a handheld. This is a hinge, and I'm going to shoot one shot for you guys so you guys get to kind of see what it looks like. And then I'm going to do one with a wrist strap so you guys can kind of see the difference. And then I'm going to go over kind of just a quick wrap up, and I'm going to give you guys a couple of releases that I would recommend if you're getting new into shooting a wrist strap or new into a bow in general. And then I'm going to give you guys a couple handheld options that I would also recommend. So let's go ahead and get shooting. So you can see I am nice and steady. There's not much float into it, and I just pull through my shot. And that would have been a dead antelope. So it's pretty, you know, it's pretty simple. I'm going to show you guys what it looks like when you let down. It's a little more intuitive when you're using a hinge because you don't actually have something to keep it from going off. You just have to straighten your wrist out and let down super smooth. I'll do that for you guys, and then we'll get into the handheld, or the wrist strap, excuse me. So letting down a bow with any release can kind of be intimidating at the start. I want to let you guys know that it is completely acceptable, and typically if you think about letting down, you probably should. Whether you're shooting at a target or whether you're shooting at a live animal, you probably should rethink your shot form or your shot process or whatever you're doing that's giving you hesitation. That's going to kill your confidence, and if you kill your confidence, you're going to kill your accuracy. That's one thing I cannot stress enough. But let's go ahead and show you what it looks like to let down with a hinge. So here we go. We're going to draw back, and you can see I just have one single hook. I'll show you guys that there real quick. One single hook, hook on, draw back. So I'm at full draw, and what you just want to do is you just want to relax this back wrist and elbow, hold on to your thumb peg, and then just go forward slightly. And look at that. You've made it. You've let down with the hinge successfully, and your bow hasn't gone off and shot an arrow. into outer space, up into orbit. So that's pretty much everything with a handheld release. I'm going to show you guys a wrist strap. I'm going to shoot one shot with it. We'll see how I do because I haven't shot a wrist strap in a very long time. And I'll let down with it and show you guys kind of the difference. So I got my wrist strap on. You guys can see it's on my hand, not going anywhere. Just going to open these jaws up, hook onto our D-loop, and draw back and shoot one. It's pretty simple. I'm at full draw now. Anchor point is not the same, which is kind of weird, but that'd have been a dead antelope as well. I'm not the greatest shot with the wrist strap just because I haven't been shooting one for so long, but I'm going to go pull that arrow. That would have been a dead antelope, and I'm going to show you guys letting it down, and then we're going to give the final thoughts. So we're going to let down with this wrist strap. It's pretty easy. It's probably the easiest. In fact, it is the easiest release to let down your bow with. So here we go. We're going to clip on. We're going to yank her back. We're at full draw. I've hit the back wall. Can't draw any further. And I'm just going to relax my wrist and let the bow go forward slowly. And boom. I'm still attached, so if I need to redraw real quick, maybe I just need to move my arm around a tree real quick, I can just draw back and go about my shot process again. But that's a wrist strap for you. So which release should you choose, a wrist strap or a handheld? Well, it's kind of counterintuitive. There's so much that goes into it, picking out which release that you want to go. You don't have to stay with one for the rest of your life. You don't have to pick a handheld or a wrist strap for the rest of your life. I said that backwards. Handheld, wrist strap. You don't have to pick one of those for the rest of your life. If you don't like one, don't be afraid to switch. You know, that's why we have off season. That's why we have, you know, places to practice, whether it's a public place to practice, you know, off in the summer, you're in my backyard like such as myself. You just get to practice 24/7 and do what fits you. Just because, you know, your buddy, your dad, your grandpa, your brother, they shoot a wrist strap doesn't mean you can't shoot a handheld, and just because they shoot a handheld doesn't mean you can't shoot a wrist strap. So, which one should you choose? If you're a beginner, I would go with the wrist strap. I really would. You know, it's hard to beat these. You know, it's kind of the bread butter. You know, everyone's going to get started with these, or not everyone, but most people are going to get started with these. They're great for hunting. They're great for target shooting, just plinking around in the backyard and getting comfortable with your bow setup. But if you want to get into a little bit more advanced, you know, type of shooting, maybe you're shooting long range, or you just want to get into some out west hunting and just get it to that next level, I would say a handheld is a release that you guys need to go with. I'm going to leave links in the description down below for, you know, a couple types of wrist straps and a couple types of handhelds in different categories of price range, from cheap, you know, middle range, and then into best. I'm not going to give you guys anything that I wouldn't personally shoot if I was shooting that type of release. So definitely go check those out in the link in the description below. But without further ado, I hope everyone is doing super well. If you guys got value out of today's video, leave me a like and a comment. I try to reach as many comments as I can and, you know, reply to you guys and answer questions. But that's all that I have for you guys today. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next video.